She kicked me in front of everyone at the charity event, laughing as I fell, called me a nobody. 3 weeks later, I stepped out of a limousine at her engagement party wearing diamonds worth millions. Her face went pale. Because the man waiting for me? Her fiancé's father. Before I tell you how I went from humiliated to powerful in 3 weeks, hit that subscribe button. This story has betrayal, family secrets, and the most satisfying revenge you'll ever hear. Comment if you believe karma is real. Now, let me take you back to the day everything changed. My name is Zoe, and I've always been what people call a simple woman. Not poor, but not wealthy either. I work as an event coordinator for charity organizations, the kind of job where you make sure everything runs smoothly behind the scenes, while other people take the credit. I live in a decent apartment, drive an older car that still runs fine, and I'm comfortable with my life. I've never needed designer clothes or expensive jewelry to feel good about myself. My mother raised me to believe that character matters more than money, and I've carried that with me every single day. 6 months ago, my mother passed away. She was everything to me, the one person who truly understood who I was. In her final days, when the cancer had taken almost everything from her, she kept talking about a blue box hidden in her closet. Her voice would get urgent, desperate almost. "Zoe, there are things about our family you need to know," she'd whisper, gripping my hand with whatever strength she had left. "In the blue box. Promise me you'll open it when you're ready." I promised her I would, but after she died, I couldn't bring myself to do it. The grief was suffocating, and whatever secrets were in that box felt like they would only make the pain worse. So it sat on my shelf, unopened, gathering dust while I tried to put my life back together. 3 weeks ago, I was coordinating a charity gala at the Grand Meridian Hotel. It was one of the biggest events of the season, 200 wealthy guests coming together to raise money for the Children's Hospital. I'd been planning it for months, every detail carefully arranged. The ballroom looked stunning, with white orchids and soft golden lighting. Everything was perfect, or at least it was until she arrived. Cassandra Wellington swept into the venue like she owned it, and maybe in some ways she did. She was on the charity board, one of the major donors, the kind of woman whose name appeared in society magazines. She wore a fur coat despite it being a warm evening, and her jewelry caught the light with every movement. Her fiancé, Andrew Morrison, walked beside her. I'd met him briefly during the planning stages. He seemed kind, genuinely interested in the charity's work. He came from the Morrison family, the ones who owned the hotel chain. Old money, real power. I was near the catering entrance when I noticed Cassandra standing right in the path of the staff. They were trying to bring out the appetizers, but she was blocking the entire area, completely oblivious or maybe just uncaring. I approached her professionally, clipboard in hand. "Excuse me, Mrs. Wellington. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but this area is for staff only. Would you mind stepping to the side for just a moment?" She turned to me slowly, and the look on her face made my stomach drop. Her eyes were cold, assessing me like I was something unpleasant she'd found on the bottom of her shoe. "Excuse me? Do you know who I am?" I kept my voice steady, professional. "Yes, ma'am. You're on our charity board, and we're so grateful for your support. I just need to keep this area clear for the catering staff." What happened next felt like it was happening in slow motion. Her face twisted with rage, genuine fury over something so small. "How dare a nobody like you tell me what to do?" Her voice rose, sharp enough that people nearby started turning to look. Before I could respond, before I could even process what was happening, she stepped forward and deliberately tripped me. My clipboard went flying, papers scattering across the polished floor as I fell hard onto my hands and knees. The pain shot through my palms, but that wasn't the worst part. As I tried to stand, still processing the shock of what she'd just done, she stepped on my hand with her stiletto heel. The sharp pain made me gasp, and then I felt her shoe connect with my ribs. She actually kicked me. Not accidentally, not a stumble. She kicked me while I was down on the ground in front of hundreds of people. "Stay down where you belong," she hissed, her voice dripping with contempt. The ballroom had gone quiet. Everyone was staring. Some people had their phones out. I could see the flashes, hear the whispers spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Andrew rushed over, his face a mixture of shock and horror. "Cassandra! What's wrong with you?" He helped me to my feet, his hands gentle, apologetic. But Cassandra wasn't finished. "She touched me. These simple people need to learn their place." She was breathing hard, her face flushed with anger that seemed completely disproportionate to what had actually happened. I stood there, my hand throbbing, my ribs aching, trying to maintain whatever dignity I had left. "I apologize if I offended you," I said quietly, even though I knew I'd done nothing wrong, even though every part of me wanted to scream at the injustice of it. That's when she slapped me. The sound cracked through the ballroom like a gunshot. My cheek burned, my eyes watered from the shock and pain, and I heard the collective gasp from the crowd. "Your apology means nothing," she spat. Security arrived within moments, but not to help me. Cassandra was already talking to them in hushed, urgent tones. Within minutes, I was being escorted out of my own event. She'd threatened to pull all her funding if I stayed. The charity board made their choice, and it wasn't me. I drove home in a daze, my face still stinging, my body aching. By the time I got to my apartment, the video was already online. "Socialite brutalizes charity worker," read the headline. Millions of views, thousands of comments, but none of it mattered because the next morning I received an email from the charity. I was fired. They couldn't risk upsetting Cassandra Wellington. Her money was more important than what she'd done to me. I sat in my apartment for 3 days, barely eating, barely sleeping. I'd lost my job, my reputation was in ruins, and every time I closed my eyes I could see her face twisted with contempt, hear her calling me a nobody. On the 3rd night, I found myself staring at the blue box on my shelf. My mother's words echoed in my head. "When you're ready." Maybe I wasn't ready, but I had nothing left to lose. Inside the box, my entire world changed. There was a birth certificate with a name I'd never seen before, Zoe Catherine Morrison, not my mother's surname. There were photos of a wedding, a young woman in white marrying a distinguished older man, newspaper clippings about the Morrison Hotel dynasty, legal documents about an adoption, and a letter written in my mother's shaky handwriting. "My dearest Zoe, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and it's time you knew the truth. I am not your biological mother, though I have loved you as my own from the moment I held you. Your real mother was Catherine Morrison, from one of the wealthiest families in the country. She married Henry Morrison in an arranged marriage, but she was already pregnant with you. The father was a teacher she'd fallen in love with, a good man named John. Her family forced her into the Morrison marriage to save face, and when you were born she had no choice but to give you up. I was her lady's maid, and I agreed to raise you as my own. She paid for everything, visited when she could, until she died when you were 7. They said it was an accident, but I think her heart just broke. Henry Morrison never knew about you. Catherine's father buried all the evidence to protect the family name. The documents in this box prove everything. You are a Morrison, Zoe. You always have been. I read that letter 5 times before the words truly sank in. Henry Morrison was my father, the Henry Morrison who owned half the hotels in the country. And Andrew Morrison, the kind man who'd helped me up at the gala, was my half-brother, the same Andrew who was engaged to Cassandra Wellington. I hired a private investigator the next morning. Within a week, he'd confirmed everything with DNA tests using samples from a public event Henry had attended. I was a Morrison. I was the hidden heir everyone had been looking for since my grandfather's death. There was $300 million waiting for the rightful Morrison heir, and that heir was me. But the investigator found something else, something that made my blood run cold. Cassandra Wellington was systematically stealing from Andrew. She'd already transferred $45 million to offshore accounts. She'd done this before, married wealthy men, and destroyed them. One of her previous husbands had committed suicide after she ruined him financially. She was planning to divorce Andrew the moment she got access to the Morrison family trusts. She was a predator, and my brother had no idea. I contacted the Morrison family lawyers with all my evidence. They confirmed everything and prepared the legal documents. They told me the engagement party was in 2 weeks, and that would be the perfect time to reveal the truth. They advanced me money from my inheritance, enough to transform myself from the simple woman everyone had seen into the Morrison heiress I actually was. The night of the engagement party, I stood in front of my mirror barely recognizing myself. The navy blue gown was elegant, sophisticated. The diamonds around my neck were from the Morrison family vault, my birthright. But underneath all of it, I was still just Zoe, the woman who'd been kicked and humiliated 3 weeks ago. The difference was, now I had the power to do something about it. The white limousine pulled up to the Morrison estate, and I could see the crowds of photographers, the hundreds of guests in their finest clothes. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought everyone could hear it. The door opened, and I stepped out onto the red carpet. Flashes went off like lightning. Someone announced my name, Miss Zoe Catherine Morrison, daughter of the late Catherine Morrison. The crowd went absolutely silent. Catherine Morrison's name hadn't been spoken publicly in 32 years. I walked through that silence like I was walking through water, every step feeling surreal. At the entrance, I saw him, Henry Morrison, silver-haired and distinguished, standing with Andrew. When Henry's eyes met mine, he went completely pale. I have my mother's eyes, her face. He was seeing a ghost. I walked straight to him, my legs somehow still working despite the fear coursing through me. "Mr. Morrison, we need to talk. It's about Catherine." My voice came out steady, stronger than I felt. His voice shook when he spoke. "How do you know that name?" I looked into the eyes of the father I'd never known and said the words that would change everything. "Because she was my mother, and you're my father." I showed him the ring with the Morrison crest, the documents, the DNA results. This powerful man, this titan of industry, tears started streaming down his face. Andrew rushed over, confused and concerned. "Father, what's happening?" Then he saw me, really saw me, and recognition dawned. "Wait, you're the woman from the gala." That's when I heard her voice cutting through the moment like a knife. "You! What are you doing here?" Cassandra was pushing through the crowd, her face a mixture of shock and fury. She looked between me and the Morrison men, trying to understand what was happening. "Remove this woman! She's a stalker!" Cassandra shouted at security. Henry's voice boomed across the ballroom. "Stop! No one touches her!" He stood tall, protective, paternal. "Andrew, this is your sister." The room exploded in whispers, gasps, shocked exclamations. I watched Andrew's face cycle through confusion, disbelief, and then something wonderful, acceptance. "I have a sister," he said softly. Henry took the microphone and told our story to the entire party. He confessed everything about Catherine being forced into marriage, about not knowing I existed, about the DNA tests that proved I was his daughter. He announced me as the legitimate Morrison heir, his voice breaking with emotion. Andrew approached me with tears in his eyes and pulled me into a hug. "I always wanted a sister," he whispered. But Cassandra, she was unraveling. She stormed forward, her carefully constructed mask shattering. "This is ridiculous. She's a fraud. This woman is a nobody." She pointed at me with a shaking finger. "I've seen her bowing and scraping at charity events. She's probably a con artist." I pulled out my phone calmly and played the video, the one that had gone viral. Every person in that ballroom watched Cassandra kick me, slap me, call me worthless. I watched Andrew's face crumble as he saw the woman he'd planned to marry reveal her true nature. "Cassandra, how could you?" His voice was barely a whisper. But I wasn't finished. My lawyers stepped forward with folders full of evidence. Bank statements showing the $45 million she'd stolen, documentation of her previous marriages and the men she'd destroyed, the police reports from her last husband before his suicide, everything laid bare in front of 400 witnesses. Andrew looked at her like he'd never seen her before. "You never loved me." And that's when Cassandra's mask completely shattered. She laughed, actually laughed. "Love? Love? You're just a bank account with a face." She turned to me, her eyes wild. And you should have stayed in the gutter where you belong. Your mother was a whore who got pregnant with some poor man's child." Henry moved faster than I'd ever seen anyone move. The slap echoed through the ballroom. "Never speak of Catherine that way." His voice shook with rage and grief. Cassandra lunged at me, trying to attack me again, but security was ready this time. They grabbed her as she screamed and clawed, completely unhinged. The police arrived, summoned by my lawyers. As they put handcuffs on her wrists, Cassandra's eyes found mine. "You've ruined everything!" I walked closer, close enough that only she could hear me. "No, Cassandra, you ruined yourself when you kicked me. If you'd just walked past me that night, you'd be married to a billionaire right now. But you couldn't help yourself, you had to be cruel. And that cruelty? That's what destroyed you." I watched her face as the truth of those words sank in. Her own actions had led her here. Then they dragged her away, her screams fading as the ballroom doors closed. Henry wrapped his arms around me, this father I'd just met. "I'm so sorry for everything you suffered." Andrew stood beside us, and for the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to have a family. 6 months have passed since that night. Cassandra was convicted and sentenced to 15 years for fraud, theft, and assault. The stolen money was recovered. Andrew and I now run Morrison Hotels together, and we've created a new charity division called Catherine's Legacy. We help women escaping abuse and children from broken homes, people who need someone to believe in them the way I needed someone to believe in me. Last week I visited Cassandra in prison. Just once. She looked so different, aged and broken. When she saw me, she said, "Come to gloat?" I sat down across from her and said, "No, I came to thank you. If you hadn't kicked me that night, I'd never have opened my mother's box. I'd never have found my real family. Your cruelty gave me everything I needed to find where I truly belong. So thank you, Cassandra. Your worst moment became my best." As I stood to leave, she broke down crying. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I paused at the door. "I know, but sorry doesn't undo the damage." Then I walked away, finally free. Cassandra kicked a simple woman and destroyed her own future. That simple woman stepped out of a limo and became an empire. If this story made you believe in karma, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible revenge stories every week. Comment, was Zoe's revenge satisfying enough, or should she have gone harder? Share this with someone who needs to remember that treating people badly always comes back to you. Remember, you never know who you're dealing with, that nobody you disrespect today might be the one who destroys your tomorrow. See you in the next story.